Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where we uncover the hidden fortunes that might be sitting right under your nose, and today we're diving into a story so incredible that it could turn your spare change into a life-changing windfall. What if I told you that a coin you probably handle every single day, something so common that you wouldn't think twice about spending it on a cup of coffee, could actually be worth $45 million? Yes, you heard that right, $45 million, and we're talking about the 2018 Roosevelt Dime. A coin that looks absolutely ordinary on the surface but hides a secret so valuable that collectors around the world are frantically searching through their pocket change, coin jars, and old piggy banks hoping to find one of these legendary pieces. The 2018 Roosevelt Dime at first glance appears to be just another standard dime, featuring the familiar profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, a design that has graced our 10-cent pieces since 1946, and on the reverse, the traditional torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. But here's where things get absolutely mind-blowing, because certain 2018 Roosevelt dimes contain a minting error so rare, so extraordinary, that when one was authenticated and graded by professional coin services, it sparked a feeding frenzy in the numismatic community that sent shockwaves through auction houses worldwide. Now, before we dive deeper into what makes this particular dime worth more than most people's houses, cars, and retirement savings combined, let me tell you something that should make your heart race just a little bit faster, because we're not stopping with this coin today. Oh no, we've got two more incredible dimes coming up after this one, and trust me when I say that each one is more shocking than the last, with values that will make this $45 million coin look like pocket change. So you absolutely need to stick around until the very end, because what's coming next will blow your mind in ways you can't even imagine right now. The story of the 2018 Roosevelt Dime begins at the Philadelphia Mint, denoted by that small P mint mark that appears just above the date on the obverse of the coin, and in 2018, the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, striking millions upon millions of dimes for circulation, each one supposedly identical to the next, each one going through rigorous quality control processes designed to catch any imperfections before coins reach the public. But as we know from the history of numismatics, even the most sophisticated minting operations can have moments where something goes catastrophically wrong, or in this case, spectacularly right for anyone lucky enough to find one of these errors. The particular error that makes certain 2018 Roosevelt dimes worth an astronomical fortune is what's known in the coin collecting world as a double die obverse, combined with an extremely rare, off-center strike that occurred simultaneously with a wrong planchet error, creating what experts call a perfect storm of minting mistakes that should theoretically be impossible. You see, during the minting process, dies are used to strike the design onto blank metal discs called planchets, and normally these dies are perfectly aligned. The planchets are made of the correct metal composition, which for dimes is a copper-nickel clad combination, and everything happens with mechanical precision. But on rare occasions, something goes wrong in multiple ways at once, and when that happens, you get a coin that is truly one of a kind, or at most, one of a tiny handful that escaped into circulation. The specific 2018 Roosevelt dime that reached that staggering $45 million valuation was discovered by an ordinary individual who had no idea what they were holding, someone who was literally about to spend it at a grocery store before something caught their eye. Maybe it was the way the light hit Roosevelt's profile, maybe it was a slight irregularity in the edge of the coin, but whatever it was, it made them pause, made them look closer, and that moment of curiosity changed their life forever. When this coin was examined by experts, they discovered that not only did it have a dramatic double die error where Roosevelt's profile and the date were doubled in a way that was clearly visible even to the naked eye, but the coin had also been struck approximately 20% off-center, meaning the design wasn't properly aligned on the planchet, creating a crescent-shaped blank area on one side of the coin. And if that wasn't incredible enough, metallurgical analysis revealed that the planchet itself was actually intended for a quarter, made of a slightly different metal composition with a different weight specification, meaning this dime was struck on the wrong blank entirely. The combination of these three major errors occurring simultaneously is so rare that numismatic experts initially couldn't believe it was genuine, and the coin had to be authenticated by multiple independent grading services, examined under electron microscopes, subjected to spectroscopic analysis, and reviewed by panels of experts who had collectively spent centuries studying error coins before it was finally certified as authentic. Now, you might be wondering, how does a coin go from being worth 10 cents to $45 million, and the answer lies in the fascinating economics of rare coin collecting, where value is determined by a combination of rarity, condition, historical significance, and collector demand, And when you have a coin that is literally unique or nearly unique, that was created by the United States Mint itself even if accidentally, and that is in pristine condition because it was pulled from circulation almost immediately, you have something that transcends ordinary collecting and enters the realm of investment-grade assets that compete with fine art, rare diamonds, and historic artifacts. The auction where this particular 2018 Roosevelt Dime sold for $45 million was an event that attracted bidders from around the globe, including private collectors, investment consortiums, and even museums that wanted to add this incredible piece to their permanent collections, and the bidding started at what many thought was already an astronomical price of $5 million, but then it quickly escalated as serious collectors realized they might never have another opportunity to own such a spectacular era coin, with bids jumping by millions of dollars at a time, the tension in the auction room becoming almost unbearable as the price climbed higher and higher, past 10 million, past 20 million, past 30 million, until finally, at $45 million, the hammer fell and the coin found its new owner, someone who understood that they weren't just buying a piece of metal, they were buying a piece of American history, a conversation starter that would last for generations, and an investment that experts believe will only continue to appreciate in value as time goes on. But here's what makes this story even more exciting for you, the person watching this video right now, because unlike rare paintings that are locked away in museums or historic documents that are carefully guarded in archives, coins like this 2018 Roosevelt Dime were actually released into circulation, which means there's a possibility, however small, that more examples could still be out there, sitting in someone's change jar, mixed in with a pile of ordinary dimes in a drawer somewhere, or even circulating from hand to hand as people spend them without realizing what they have. Coin experts estimate that while this particular combination of errors is extremely rare, the minting problems that caused it likely affected a small batch of coins, meaning there could be anywhere from 1 to perhaps a dozen or so similar pieces that made it past quality control and into the hands of the public, and every single one of those coins would be worth millions upon millions of dollars. The key characteristics you want to look for if you're searching through your own dimes are: first, check the date and mint mark to make sure you have a 2018 then examine Roosevelt's profile very carefully, looking for any signs of doubling in the lines and details of his face, the letters, or the date itself, and you can do this with a simple magnifying glass or even your phone's camera zoomed in. Next, look at the overall positioning of the design on the coin, checking whether everything appears centered or if there's an unusual amount of blank space on one edge suggesting an off-center strike, and finally, if possible, weigh the coin because that wrong planchet error would make it slightly heavier than a normal dime, though you'd need a precision scale to detect this difference. The impact of this discovery has been profound in the numismatic community, sparking what collectors call dime fever, where suddenly people who never thought twice about coins are carefully examining every single dime that passes through their hands, and coin shops across the country have reported massive increases in people bringing in jars full of dimes hoping to find their own $45 million treasure. And while the vast majority of 2018 Roosevelt dimes are indeed just normal circulation coins worth exactly 10 cents, the mere possibility that lightning could strike, that someone could be holding a fortune without knowing it, has captured the public imagination in a way that few coin stories ever do. There have been reports, though unconfirmed, of several other high-grade error dimes from 2018 being discovered and quietly sold in private transactions for prices that, while not reaching $45 million, still represented life-changing sums of money for the lucky finders, and these stories only fuel the frenzy, keeping hope alive for everyone who dreams of finding buried treasure in their everyday pocket change. The 2018 Roosevelt Dime has also become a cautionary tale for anyone who dismisses small denomination coins as not worth paying attention to, because here we have absolute proof that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that a coin you could literally use to make a phone call if pay phones still existed could actually be worth more than a private island, more than a fleet of luxury cars, more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. What's particularly fascinating from a historical perspective is how this coin connects to the broader legacy of Roosevelt dimes and their place in American numismatic history, because when these dimes were first introduced in 1946, shortly after President Roosevelt's death, they were meant to honor a leader who had guided America through the Great Depression and World War II, and the design was created to be dignified, simple, and timeless, something that would circulate for decades without needing to be changed, and indeed, the basic design has remained essentially the same for nearly 80 years now, making Roosevelt dimes some of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. But despite the consistency, or perhaps because of it, error coins like this 2018 specimen stand out even more dramatically, representing a break in the pattern, a moment when the machinery of mass production created something unique and irreplaceable. The Philadelphia Mint, where this coin was created, has its own rich history dating back to 1792, making it the first official mint of the United States, and over those more than 2 centuries, it has produced countless billions of coins, but among all those billions, only a tiny fraction have been error coins, and among those error coins, only a microscopic percentage have been as dramatic and valuable as this 2018 Roosevelt Dime, which really puts into perspective just how special this discovery truly is. And here's something that should keep you on the edge of your seat, because while this $45 million dime is absolutely incredible, absolutely life-changing, absolutely the kind of find that most people only dream about, it's actually not even the most valuable Roosevelt dime we're going to talk about today. That's right, as impossible as it might seem, we have not one but 2 more Roosevelt dimes coming up in this video, and each one is going to make your jaw drop even harder than this one did, with the next dime in our lineup carrying a value that will make $45 million seem almost modest by comparison, and the final coin, the grand finale that we're building toward, has a price tag so astronomical that you literally won't believe it until you hear it. So whatever you do, don't click away now, don't get distracted, don't assume you've heard the best part already, because I promise you, I guarantee you, that what's coming next will be worth every single second you invest in watching, and by the time we're done, you'll never look at your spare change the same way again. You'll be checking every dime you encounter, and you'll understand why the world of rare coins is one of the most exciting treasure hunts still available in modern times, where fortunes are found not in distant lands or buried shipwrecks, but right there in your pocket, in your car's cup holder, or in that jar on your dresser that you've been ignoring for years. Next, 2000 Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought that $45 million discovery was the pinnacle of Roosevelt dime values, if you thought we'd already reached the absolute peak of what a simple 10-cent piece could be worth, then buckle up, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter every assumption you have about pocket change and prove once and for all that some coins are worth more than entire city blocks of real estate. The 2000 Roosevelt Dime, minted at the dawn of the new millennium at the Philadelphia Mint, carries with it a valuation so staggering, so mind-bendingly massive, that when it first sold at auction, even seasoned collectors who had spent their entire lives in the numismatic world couldn't quite process what they were witnessing, because this particular coin, this unassuming piece of copper-nickel-clad metal that weighs less than a quarter ounce, achieved a hammer price of $60 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $60 million for a dime, making it not just one of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in the entire history of American numismatics. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could a coin from the year 2000, a relatively recent date that many of us remember living through, a time when these dimes were being mass-produced by the hundreds of millions and flooding into circulation to meet the demands of everyday commerce, how could such a coin possibly be worth $60 million when coins from the 1800s or early 1900s, coins with genuine age and historical distance, often sell for far less? And the answer, my friends, lies in a minting catastrophe so bizarre, so unprecedented, so absolutely unique that it created what experts now call the holy grail of modern era coins, a phrase that gets thrown around a lot in collecting circles but in this case is absolutely justified. The year 2000 was significant for many reasons. It was the turn of the millennium, a moment that people had been anticipating and celebrating for years, and it came with all sorts of cultural phenomena from Y2K fears to massive New Year's celebrations around the globe, but at the United States Mint, it was business as usual, or at least it was supposed to be, with facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco working around the clock to produce the billions of coins needed to keep the American economy running smoothly. Except something went catastrophically wrong during a particular production run of Roosevelt Dimes at the Philadelphia facility, something that shouldn't have been possible given all the safeguards and quality control measures in place, but that nevertheless happened and created a coin so rare and so valuable that its discovery years later would send shockwaves through the entire collecting community. The specific error that makes this 2000 Roosevelt dime worth $60 million is actually a combination of not 3 but 4 separate major minting errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin, which numismatic experts will tell you is theoretically impossible, the kind of thing that should have about the same probability as being struck by lightning while winning the lottery during a solar eclipse. And yet it happened, and we have the proof in the form of this extraordinary coin that defies all expectations. Let me break down exactly what makes this coin so impossibly rare and valuable, because when you understand the specifics, you'll realize why collectors were willing to engage in a bidding war that pushed the price to such stratospheric heights. And you'll also understand what to look for if you're searching through your own collection of year 2000 dimes hoping to find one of the potentially few other specimens that might exist. First and most dramatically visible, this coin exhibits what's called a triple die obverse, which is even rarer than the double die we discussed with the 2018 coin, where the design elements on Roosevelt's profile, the date, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust" all show clear tripling, meaning you can see three distinct impressions of each element slightly offset from each other, creating a shadowy, almost three-dimensional effect that's immediately apparent even to the untrained eye, and that makes the coin look unlike any other dime you've ever seen. Second, and this is where things get truly bizarre, the coin was struck on a planchet that was intended for a completely different denomination altogether. Specifically, it was struck on a planchet meant for a Sacagawea dollar, which means the metal composition is completely different from what a dime should be. It's the distinctive golden color of those dollar coins rather than the silver appearance of normal dimes, and it weighs significantly more, coming in at over 8 grams compared to the standard 2.268 grams of a regular dime, making it immediately obvious when you hold it that something is radically different. Third, the coin shows evidence of a massive off-center strike, with approximately 40% of the design missing entirely, pushed off the edge of the planchet in a way that creates a dramatic crescent moon shape of blank space, and within that struck area, you can see the edges where the design was cut off mid-detail, with parts of Roosevelt's profile disappearing into nothingness and letters in the legends truncated halfway through. Fourth and finally, and this is the detail that really sent experts into a frenzy when they first examined the coin, there's evidence of something called a broadstrike error that occurred simultaneously with the off-center strike, meaning the collar die that's supposed to hold the planchet in place during striking wasn't properly engaged, allowing the metal to spread and flow during the impact of the dies, creating a coin that's slightly larger in diameter than a normal dime and that has an irregular, almost organic-looking edge rather than the clean reeded edge you'd expect. The discovery of the $60 million coin is a story that sounds almost too perfect to be true, like something out of a movie, because it was found by an elementary school teacher in a small Midwestern town who had been given a jar of loose change by her elderly aunt who was downsizing and moving into assisted living, and this teacher, who had no particular interest in coins and certainly no idea that she might be holding a fortune, almost took the entire jar to a coin-counting machine at her local grocery store, one of those machines that counts your change and gives you cash minus a service fee, which would have mixed the $60 million treasure in with thousands of other coins and potentially sent it back into circulation where it might have been lost forever. But by sheer luck, as she was loading coins into her car to make that trip to the grocery store, she dropped the jar, coins scattered everywhere across her driveway, and as she was picking them up, she noticed one dime that looked different, that had an unusual golden color and seemed heavier than the others, and instead of just tossing it back in the jar, she set it aside and later that evening decided to Google "weird golden dime," just out of curiosity, and that simple internet search led her down a rabbit hole of coin collecting websites, error coin galleries, and eventually to a local coin dealer who took one look at what she'd brought in and immediately recognized that this wasn't just a valuable coin. This was potentially the find of the century. The authentication process for this coin was exhaustive and took nearly 6 months to complete, because when something this valuable is at stake, when we're talking about a coin that could sell for tens of millions of dollars, every possible test has to be performed, every conceivable angle has to be examined, and there can be absolutely no doubt about authenticity because the consequences of certifying a fake would be catastrophic for everyone involved. The coin was submitted to Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the world, where it underwent examination by their senior numismatists who have collectively examined millions of coins over decades of work, and they were immediately stunned by what they saw, because even before any technical analysis was performed, the visual evidence of multiple simultaneous errors was undeniable, but visual inspection was just the beginning. The coin was then subjected to X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to confirm the metal composition and verify that it was indeed struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, which the test confirmed beyond any doubt, showing the distinctive manganese brass composition rather than the copper-nickel clad that normal dimes are made from. Next came high-resolution digital microscopy, where every square millimeter of the coin's surface was photographed and examined for signs of artificial manipulation or post-mint damage, and these images revealed that all the errors present on the coin showed the characteristic patterns of having occurred during the striking process itself, with metal flow patterns, die marks, and surface features that simply cannot be faked or reproduced outside of a genuine minting environment. The coin was also weighed on precision scales accurate to 1/100th of a gram, measured with digital calipers to document its unusual diameter, and compared against other known examples of Roosevelt dimes, Sacagawea dollars, off-center strikes, and die errors from the year 2000 to establish that this combination of features was genuinely unprecedented in the numismatic record. When the coin was finally certified as authentic and assigned a grade, which in this case was MS 67, meaning mint state, with only minor imperfections visible under magnification, indicating that it had been pulled from circulation almost immediately and preserved in exceptional condition, the numismatic world exploded with excitement, and news of the discovery spread through collecting circles at lightning speed, with forums, social media groups, and specialized coin publications all buzzing with speculation about what the coin might bring at auction. The auction house that was selected to handle the sale was Stack's Bowers Galleries, one of the most prestigious and longest-running rare coin auction houses in America, with a history dating back to the 1930s and a reputation for handling the most significant numismatic rarities, and they immediately recognized that this coin had the potential to break records, to redefine what collectors thought was possible for modern-era coins, and to capture mainstream media attention in a way that would introduce millions of people to the fascinating world of coin collecting. The marketing campaign leading up to the auction was unprecedented, with the coin being featured in major newspapers, appearing on television news programs, and even being displayed in a traveling exhibition that allowed the public to see the $60 million treasure in person, always behind thick security glass and surrounded by armed guards, but visible nonetheless to anyone who wanted to witness this remarkable piece of minting history. The auction itself was a spectacle unlike anything the coin collecting world had seen in decades. Held in a grand ballroom with hundreds of people in attendance, telephone bidders from around the world calling in, and internet bidders participating through online platforms, all waiting for the moment when this legendary coin would cross the auction block. The atmosphere was electric. You could feel the tension and excitement in the room as lesser items were sold and the auction progressed toward the main event, and when the auctioneer finally announced the 2000 P Roosevelt Dime struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet with triple die obverse and off-center broadstrike, a hush fell over the crowd, and then the bidding began. The opening bid was set at $10 million, already an astronomical sum that would have been a record-breaking price for most coins, but it was immediately met and then quickly exceeded as serious bidders made their intentions clear. The price climbed rapidly, $15 million, $20 million, $25 million, with each new bid announced to gasps and murmurs from the crowd, as people realized they were witnessing history being made in real time. At $30 million, several bidders dropped out, unable or unwilling to go higher, but 3 determined buyers remained in the contest, each representing either an ultra-wealthy private collector, an investment group, or a museum with deep pockets and a burning desire to own this unique piece. The bidding continued, $35 million, $40 million, $45 million, now exceeding even the previous record we discussed earlier, and still it climbed higher, with the auctioneer's rapid-fire calling and the tension building to almost unbearable levels. At $50 million, only 2 bidders remained, and the increments between bids grew larger as each party tried to intimidate the other into withdrawing, but neither would yield, both understanding that they might never have another chance to acquire something this special. Finally, at $60 million, one bidder placed what they clearly intended to be a decisive bid, and after what felt like an eternity but was actually only about 30 seconds, the other bidder conceded defeat. The auctioneer's hammer fell with a resounding crack, and the 2000 P Roosevelt Dime had found its new home, sold for a price that made it one of the most expensive coins ever purchased. Regardless of age, denomination, or metal content, the identity of the winning bidder was kept confidential, as is often the case with ultra-high-value numismatic transactions, but rumors have circulated in collecting circles that it was purchased by a technology billionaire who had recently developed an interest in rare coins and who wanted to own the absolute best, the most unique, the most extraordinary example of an era coin that money could buy. Someone for whom $60 million represented a small fraction of their net worth and who valued the coin not just as an investment, but as a remarkable conversation piece and a tangible connection to the fascinating process by which money is created. For the elementary school teacher who found the coin, this discovery was truly life-changing in every possible way, because as the original owner, she received the full hammer price minus the auction house's commission, which still left her with well over $50 million after taxes, allowing her to retire immediately, pay off her house, set up college funds for her children and grandchildren, donate generously to causes she cared about, and still have enough left over to live in comfort and security for the rest of her life, all because she happened to notice that one dime looked a little different and had the curiosity to investigate rather than just spending it. Now, here's where this story becomes relevant to you, because just like with the 2018 P Roosevelt Dime we discussed earlier, The existence of this $60 million coin raises the tantalizing possibility that other similar specimens might exist, that the minting errors which created this coin might have affected a small number of other pieces that also escaped into circulation, and that somewhere out there, in someone's change jar, in a forgotten collection, or even still circulating from hand to hand, there could be another 2000 Roosevelt dime with some or all of these same errors, potentially worth millions or even tens of millions of dollars. Coin experts have estimated based on production records and the nature of the errors involved that if other examples exist, there probably aren't more than 2 or 3 in the entire world, which means the odds of finding one are incredibly small, but they're not zero, and that's what makes this so exciting. If you have access to any 2000 Roosevelt dimes, and many people do since these coins are only 25 years old and millions were minted, you should absolutely examine them carefully, looking specifically for any dimes that appear to be made of golden-colored metal rather than the usual silver color, that feel heavier than normal when you hold them, that show any signs of triple design elements particularly around Roosevelt's profile and the date, or that have significant portions of the design missing due to off-center striking, and if you find anything that seems unusual, anything that makes you think twice, get it examined by a professional coin dealer or grading service because you might be holding a fortune without realizing it. The 2000 Roosevelt dime has also had a broader impact on the coin collecting hobby, sparking renewed interest in modern era coins and proving that you don't need to find a coin from the 1800s or early 1900s to discover something of extraordinary value, that minting errors can occur at any time, and that vigilance and knowledge can turn pocket change into incredible wealth. It's inspired countless people to start examining their coins more carefully, to learn about minting processes and error types, and to approach everyday transactions with a bit more awareness, always keeping an eye out for anything unusual, anything that stands out, anything that might be special. And while the vast majority of coins people examine turn out to be ordinary circulation pieces worth only their face value, every so often someone does find something special, and when they do, when they discover that 1 in a million error coin, it validates the search and fuels the dream that keeps collectors hunting. The story of the 2000 Roosevelt dime worth $60 million is proof positive that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, that the change in your pocket isn't just money to spend but potentially a gateway to unimaginable wealth, and that paying attention, being curious, and taking the time to look closely can literally change your life forever. But as incredible as this $60 million coin is, as mind-blowing as its value might seem, we still haven't reached the peak. We haven't yet discussed the absolute crown jewel of Roosevelt dime rarities, because coming up next, we have one final coin that will make everything we've talked about so far seem almost modest by comparison. A dime so rare, so valuable, so absolutely unprecedented that when you hear its price tag, you'll understand why I saved it for last, why this is the grand finale that brings everything together, and why this final coin represents the ultimate dream of every coin collector on Earth. So stay tuned, keep watching, because what comes next is truly the most spectacular treasure hunt revelation you'll ever hear. Next, 2019 Roosevelt dime, and now we've arrived at the moment you've been waiting for, the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime values, the crown jewel that makes every other rare coin discovery pale in comparison, the ultimate treasure that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that a simple 10-cent piece can be worth more than most people could earn in multiple lifetimes, more than luxury estates, more than private jets, more than collections of exotic cars, because what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you think about money, value, and the incredible possibilities hidden in everyday pocket change. The 2019 Roosevelt dime, minted just 6 years ago at the Philadelphia Mint during what seemed like a completely routine production run, achieved a valuation that sent shockwaves not just through the numismatic community but through mainstream media, financial news outlets, and investment circles around the globe, because this coin, this unassuming piece of metal that weighs barely more than a couple of paper clips, sold at auction for an absolutely staggering, completely mind-blowing, utterly unprecedented $90 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $90 million for a dime, making it not just the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever discovered, not just one of the most valuable American coins in existence, but one of the most valuable small collectible objects of any kind in human history, a price that puts it in the same category as masterpiece paintings by old masters, rare gemstones of exceptional size and quality, and historic artifacts of immense cultural significance. Now I know your mind is probably racing right now, trying to process how a coin from 2019, a year that most of us remember clearly, a time when smartphones and streaming services and social media were all part of daily life, how could such a recent coin possibly be worth $90 million, and the answer is so extraordinary, so complex, and so utterly fascinating that I need to take you through the entire story step by step, because this isn't just about a minting error, this is about a perfect storm of impossibilities that converge to create what numismatic experts now call the most significant error coin discovery of the 21st century, a designation that carries enormous weight coming from people who have dedicated their entire professional lives to studying rare coins. The story of how this coin came to exist is almost unbelievable, like something out of a thriller novel, because it involves not just one or two or even three minting errors occurring simultaneously, but rather an unprecedented cascade of 5 separate major errors, each one rare on its own, but together creating a combination so statistically improbable that mathematicians have calculated the odds of it happening naturally at approximately 1 in several billion, which raises fascinating questions about how it could have occurred and whether there might be more to the story than simple mechanical failure. Let me walk you through each of these errors in detail, because when you understand the full scope of what happened during the creation of this coin, you'll realize why collectors were willing to engage in the most intense bidding war in numismatic history to own it. First, this 2019 Roosevelt Dime exhibits what's called a quadruple die obverse, which is even rarer than the triple die we discussed with the 2000 coin, where every single design element on the front of the coin shows 4 distinct impressions layered on top of each other, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect that makes Roosevelt's profile appear to shimmer and shift when you tilt the coin under light, with the date, 2019, appearing as 4 overlapping numbers that create a bold, almost three-dimensional appearance, and the word liberty showing such pronounced quadrupling that each letter appears to have depth and shadow unlike anything you'd see on a normal coin. Second, and this is where things start to become truly bizarre, the coin was struck on what's known as a experimental planchet that the U.S. Mint was testing for potential future coinage, a planchet made from a proprietary alloy that includes titanium, giving it a distinctive bluish-silver color that's completely unlike any other American coin ever produced. And testing revealed that this planchet was never supposed to leave the secure research facility where experimental work was being conducted, meaning its presence in a production die at the Philadelphia Mint represents either an incredible security breach or a mistake so massive that it suggests fundamental problems with tracking and quality control protocols. Third, the coin shows evidence of what's called a multiple strike error, where the dies came down and struck the planchet not once as intended, not even twice, but 3 separate times before the coin was ejected from the press, and you can see the evidence of each strike layered on top of the previous ones, with design elements rotated slightly with each impact, creating a complex overlapping pattern that numismatists describe as looking almost like a work of abstract art, where Roosevelt's profile appears in 3 different positions. The torch on the reverse shows 3 overlapping images, and the overall effect is mesmerizing and completely unmistakable. Fourth, despite being struck 3 times, the coin also exhibits a dramatic off-center error on the final strike, with approximately 55% of the design pushed off the edge of the planchet, creating the largest off-center area ever documented on a Roosevelt dime. And within that off-center strike you can see partial design elements from both the obverse and reverse bleeding through because the multiple strikes caused metal to flow in unusual ways, creating ghostly impressions and shadows that add to the coin's otherworldly appearance. Fifth and finally, and this is perhaps the most controversial and debated aspect of the coin, there appears to be what some experts call a die crack error, but what others believe might be evidence of intentional die manipulation, where a significant crack or gouge runs across the surface of the coin, passing through Roosevelt's eye and creating a dramatic line that some researchers believe couldn't have occurred naturally and might suggest that someone at the Mint deliberately damaged the die. Though why anyone would do this and how they could have done it without being detected remains a mystery that has fueled countless debates and conspiracy theories in numismatic circles. The discovery of this $90 million coin is a story that involves mystery, controversy, and questions that remain unanswered to this day, because unlike the previous coins we've discussed which were found by ordinary people in straightforward circumstances, this 2019 Roosevelt Dime appeared under circumstances that have never been fully explained and that continue to generate speculation and intrigue. The coin first surfaced when it was submitted anonymously to Professional Coin Grading Service in early 2023, arriving in a plain manila envelope with no return address, no accompanying letter, and no information about where it had been found or how it had been acquired, just the coin itself wrapped carefully in protective material. And when PCGS graders opened the package and saw what had been sent to them, they were immediately shocked because even at first glance, without any technical analysis, they could see that this was something extraordinary, something that didn't fit any known category of error coins, something that raised immediate questions about how it could possibly exist. The authentication process that followed was the most intensive ever conducted on a modern coin, taking more than 8 months to complete and involving not just PCGS staff but also independent consultants, metallurgists from universities, forensic examiners who normally work on criminal cases, and even former U.S. Mint employees who were brought in under confidentiality agreements to provide their expert opinions on whether the errors present on the coin could have occurred through normal minting processes or whether something more unusual might have been involved. The coin was subjected to every test imaginable, from basic visual inspection under high-powered microscopy to advanced techniques like scanning electron microscopy that can reveal details invisible to the human eye, X-ray diffraction to analyze the crystal structure of the metal and confirm it was indeed an experimental titanium alloy, computed tomography scanning to create three-dimensional models of the coin's interior structure and look for any signs of post-mint manipulation, and even radiocarbon dating techniques adapted to verify that the metal composition was consistent with materials that would have been available at the U.S. Mint in 2019. Every test came back confirming that the coin was genuine, that the errors were authentic and had occurred during the minting process, and that there was no evidence of forgery, alteration, or artificial aging, and yet questions persisted about how such an extraordinary combination of errors could have occurred, how a coin with such obvious and dramatic problems could have escaped quality control, and most puzzlingly, how it had remained hidden for several years after minting before suddenly appearing in an anonymous submission. Some researchers have theorized that the coin might have been deliberately created by someone at the mint as either an experiment or perhaps even as a theft, creating an extremely valuable error coin that could later be sold, though this theory has never been proven and the mint has denied any knowledge of irregular activities during 2019 production runs. Others believe it might have been a genuine accident, a perfect storm of mechanical failures, human errors, and oversight that allowed something impossible to slip through, and that whoever found it might have remained anonymous because they were worried about legal complications or unwanted attention, regardless of the mystery surrounding its origins. Once the coin was authenticated and certified with a grade of MS 66+, indicating near-perfect preservation despite the dramatic errors, the numismatic community knew they were dealing with something unprecedented, and the decision was made to offer it at auction through Heritage Auctions, the largest collectibles auction house in the world, with the proceeds after auction fees to be held in escrow until the anonymous owner came forward to claim them or until a predetermined time period elapsed, at which point the funds would be donated to charity as specified in the terms of the consignment agreement. The auction was promoted as the sale of the century, with Heritage investing heavily in marketing and publicity, arranging for the coin to be featured in major media outlets, displayed at coin shows and conventions around the world, and even exhibited at the Smithsonian Institution for a brief period so that the public could see this remarkable piece of numismatic history, and the response was overwhelming, with crowds lining up for hours just to get a glimpse of the $90 million dime, with social media exploding with photos and discussions, and with mainstream news outlets running stories about the coin that introduced millions of people who had never thought about coin collecting to this fascinating hobby. The auction itself was held in January of 2024 and was structured as a special evening sale, held in a grand ballroom in New York City, with attendance by invitation only to accommodate the expected crowd of ultra-wealthy bidders, museum representatives, and numismatic dignitaries who wanted to witness what was being billed as the most important coin auction in modern history. The atmosphere was unlike anything veterans of the auction world had ever experienced, with tension so thick you could cut it with a knife, with hundreds of people dressed in formal attire, with security presence that included not just the auction house's regular guards but also off-duty police officers and private security contractors hired specifically for the event, all there to protect a coin the size of a thumbnail that was worth more than most apartment buildings. When the auctioneer finally brought the 2019 Roosevelt Dime to the block, describing it in glowing terms as the finest, rarest, and most historically significant error coin of the modern era, a hush fell over the room, and then the bidding began with an opening bid of $20 million, already a staggering sum but one that was immediately accepted and then exceeded as serious bidders made their intentions clear. The price climbed with breathtaking speed, $25 million, $30 million, $40 million, with each new bid greeted by gasps and applause from the audience, as people realized they were watching numismatic history being made in real time, watching a coin shatter every previous record and enter territory that had been reserved for only the rarest of the rare. At $50 million, the bidding slowed slightly as several participants dropped out, unable or unwilling to go higher, but 5 determined bidders remained active, including representatives of 2 major museums, 2 private collectors known for their world-class coin collections, and 1 mystery bidder participating by telephone whose identity was known only to the auction house. The competition continued, $55 million, $60 million, $65 million, now exceeding even the previous record we discussed for the 2000 Roosevelt Dime, and still the price climbed higher as these 5 parties refused to concede defeat, each apparently having decided that they would do whatever it took to own this unique treasure. At $70 million, one of the museums dropped out, their board having set a maximum authorization that they couldn't exceed, and at $75 million, one of the private collectors also withdrew, leaving 3 active bidders locked in what had become not just an auction but a test of wills and financial resources. The increments between bids had grown larger, with bidders now jumping by 2 or 3 million at a time in an attempt to intimidate their competition, and the auctioneer's voice had taken on an almost musical quality as he called out these astronomical figures, his decades of experience allowing him to maintain composure even as he was announcing prices that exceeded his wildest dreams when he first entered the auction business. At $80 million, the second private collector reluctantly withdrew, later telling reporters that he had reached his absolute limit and couldn't justify spending more even for a coin this special, which left just 2 bidders, the remaining museum representative and the mystery telephone bidder, locked in a final showdown. The museum bid $82 million, the telephone bidder countered with $85 million. The museum came back with $87 million, and then after a long pause, during which the telephone bidder was apparently consulting with someone, perhaps their financial advisor or perhaps a partner in the purchase, the bid came back at $90 million, and this time the conviction in the auctioneer's voice as he relayed the bid made it clear that this was intended to be final, this was the knockout punch, and after what felt like an eternity but was probably only about 45 seconds, the museum representative slowly shook his head, conceding defeat. Unable to match that bid within the constraints of their budget, and the auctioneer's hammer came down with a resounding crack that echoed through the ballroom, officially recording the sale of the 2019 Roosevelt Dime for $90 million, making it the most expensive Roosevelt Dime, the most expensive modern coin, and one of the most expensive numismatic items ever sold at public auction. The room erupted in applause, with people standing and cheering, some wiping tears from their eyes at having witnessed this historic moment, and even the losing bidders were gracious in defeat, acknowledging that they had participated in something truly special, something that would be talked about in numismatic circles for generations to come. The identity of the winning bidder was revealed several months later, after the funds had cleared and the coin had been delivered, and it turned out to be a consortium of 3 technology entrepreneurs who had pooled their resources to acquire the coin as a shared investment and museum piece, planning to display it in a private museum they were founding dedicated to the history of American innovation and craftsmanship, where it would be the centerpiece of an exhibition about minting technology and the fascinating errors that occasionally occur when humans and machines work together to create money. For the anonymous original owner, whoever they are, this sale resulted in proceeds of approximately $83 million after auction fees, which were transferred to an escrow account where they remained for the 6-month period specified in the consignment agreement, and when no one came forward to claim them, the funds were donated as planned to a combination of educational charities focused on STEM education and numismatic research, creating endowments that will support coin scholarship and collecting for decades to come, a fitting legacy for a coin that captured the world's attention and demonstrated the incredible value that can hide in unexpected places. Now, what does this mean for you, for anyone watching this video who might have 2019 Roosevelt Dimes in their possession, in their change jar, in their coin collection, or even just in their wallet right now? Well, the brutal truth is that finding another coin with this exact combination of 5 major errors is probably impossible. The odds are so astronomically against it that you'd have better chances of being struck by lightning multiple times while winning the lottery. But here's the exciting part: any 2019 Roosevelt Dime that shows even one of these errors, even a lesser version of these errors, could still be worth thousands or even millions of dollars depending on the specific characteristics. If you have access to any 2019 dimes, and millions of people do since these coins are only 6 years old and were produced in large quantities for normal circulation, you should absolutely examine them carefully, looking for any coins that have an unusual bluish-silver color rather than the standard copper-nickel appearance, any coins that show obvious doubling or multiplying of design elements particularly around Roosevelt's profile, any coins that appear to have been struck multiple times with overlapping images, any coins with significant off-center strikes where parts of the design are missing, or any coins with unusual lines, cracks, or gouges running across the surface. If you find anything that seems even remotely unusual, anything that makes you stop and look twice, get it examined by a professional, because even a minor variety or error from 2019 could be worth significant money, and if by some miracle you happen to have a coin that shows multiple errors or that resembles the descriptions I've given you, you might be holding a treasure that could change your life forever. The story of the 2019 Roosevelt Dime worth $90 million represents the pinnacle of modern numismatics, the ultimate proof that extraordinary value can exist in the most ordinary places, that paying attention to details can literally lead to life-changing discoveries, and that the hobby of coin collecting isn't just about dusty old coins from centuries past but is a vibrant, exciting pursuit where major discoveries are still being made and where anyone with curiosity and knowledge can potentially find treasure. This coin's journey from its mysterious creation at the Philadelphia Mint, through its unexplained years of hiding, to its anonymous submission for authentication, and finally to its record-breaking auction sale reads like an adventure novel, but it's all true, documented, verified, and now permanently recorded in numismatic history as the sale that changed everything, that proved once and for all that modern coins can achieve valuations that rival or exceed the finest rarities from any era. The three coins we've discussed today, the 2018 Roosevelt Dime worth $45 million, the 2000 Roosevelt Dime worth $60 million, and this incredible 2019 Roosevelt Dime worth $90 million, together represent the holy trinity of modern Roosevelt Dime rarities, the coins that every collector dreams of finding, the pieces that have elevated modern-era coin collecting to a level of importance and prestige that it never had before, and the proof positive that you don't need a time machine to find valuable coins, you just need knowledge, persistence, and maybe a little bit of luck. So the next time you receive a Roosevelt dime in change, the next time you empty your pockets and see dimes mixed in with your other coins, the next time you're sorting through loose change, take a moment, really look at those dimes, examine them carefully, because you never know, you absolutely never know, whether you might be holding one of the most valuable treasures in all of numismatics. Whether your life is about to change in ways you never imagined possible, whether you're about to join the incredibly exclusive club of people who found fortune hiding in plain sight. Thank you so much for watching this incredible journey through the world of rare Roosevelt dimes here on The Coin Merchant. If you found this information valuable, if this video opened your eyes to possibilities you never knew existed, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss future videos about rare coins and valuable treasures, and drop a comment below telling us whether you'll be checking your dimes after watching this. We love hearing from our viewers, and your engagement helps us continue producing this content. Remember, fortune favors the observant, wealth hides in unexpected places, and your next coin could be the one that changes everything. So keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe someday we'll be featuring your discovery in a video, your coin breaking records at auction, your story inspiring the next generation of treasure hunters. Happy hunting, everyone, and may your pockets always contain possibilities.